stay away from it this year. Even one thing, every mitzvah, every little thing that a person does is extremely,
also, just to point
valuable.
Of course, the mitzvahs that we not only abstain from but do things.
Correct.
And one very important thing is to have a big piece of shmura matzah, specifically shmura matzah. You are listening to the JP Show,
where we discuss the issues you care about from a Jewish perspective.
I am Rabbi G.
And I am Rabbi Levi.
And we hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, welcome to another episode of the JP Show. So how's the move going?
So the move happened, as we discussed last week.
Did you unpack?
It happened. Yes, basically.
Physically and spiritually?
Physically and spiritually. It was quite stressful, I gotta tell you, more stressful than I thought it would be. But, now we're on the other end, Baruch Hashem, so it's all good.
Great to hear.
And now it's almost Pesach.
Good, so
which is the next stress.
Okay.
Or I'm not sure if I'm allowed to call it that, but it's...
I don't know if Pesach is stress.
Pesach it's definitely stressful for many people.
Yeah, people find it stressful.
I take the easy way out. I actually, we go to my in-laws and we arrive a day before Pesach. I've always said that our helping is coming later, because arriving at their house with 4 kids would probably, disturb their preparations of Pesach. So we arrive a day before Pesach.
Yeah.
So that's good. One way of doing it. Another way of doing it is like you do, which is making Pesach. How's that going?
That's going okay. I mean, I hope we'll get you to come help me, since you're not.
That's right.
Since you're not doing anything for Pesach, we'll
for sure.
We'll rope you in.
So just to and this maybe will lead us into our discussion, just to let people in a little bit on what you do for Pesach. Pesach for anyone is stressful. It's you have to clean your house, chametz, and you have to make a lot of food, and there's 2 seders, and there's a lot of guests, and everyone seems to find Pesach very, it's a very busy time. But you've managed to make it very busy. We cover our kitchen.
Are you sure you want to let everyone into?
I'm sure many people have been to our house for Pesach, and they, it looks a little bit like a spaceship. You sort of cover your whole kitchen with foil, and you clean very thoroughly, and you're very selective in what you eat, and we go a little bit crazy on Pesach. First I want to explain a little bit what I'm talking about.
I think I better explain this. Yeah. Just to give you an introduction, we have a rule at our house that we don't invite guests for the first time on Pesach.
Right. Because
we want them to come back. So, and we want them to think that we're normal, or semi-normal at least. So, so I grew up, it's true, it's actually part of the Chabad tradition in general, but within that there's different levels. I grew up in a pretty strict Pesach household. The philosophy behind it, by the way, is that Kabbalistically, the idea of chametz, the idea of having something which is not Pesachdik, in other words, it's got grain in it, or it's risen, or whatever the case is quite a strict thing in halachically speaking. But Kabbalistically, the idea of chametz represents the ego, and it's like Pesach is like this cleansing time where you let go of your ego completely. And what that results in is that the Arizal talks about it actually, that there's a kind of even though there's Pesach is always a bit stressful to sort of clean everything out and so on, but there is this concept where being extra strict. Now the whole year round, sometimes just to be extra strict for the sake of being extra strict is not actually a good idea. Always, even spiritually speaking, it's not always a good idea. But when it comes to Pesach, there is this idea that we kind of take the stricter road. And where my ancestors come from in Russia, in the Chabad tradition, this went to quite an extreme. So we cover a lot.
Peel all your vegetables.
Right, we don't eat, if something's come from the outside, we don't eat like a vegetable unless we can peel it first, just in case it's come into contact with something.
Right.
We also don't eat any processed foods. So one would say it's very organic, and it's
quite healthy, actually.
It is quite healthy, yeah.
Besides for the matzah.
Exactly, too much matzah is not so good for you. We eat shmona matzah all Pesach, of course, and yeah, so it's a very, very clean diet. It's like only there's only a few things. It's a bit limiting in terms of what you can make, but we have a lot of fun. That's the truth.
No, it is fun. It is fun, and I think that's what we want. I want to get into a little bit of a discussion about this. Just before we do, I think it's very important to point out that keeping Pesach doesn't mean to do everything that we just described.
No,
everyone on their own journey and their own custom and their own level. If someone decides they're going to abstain on a basic level from chametz, if they haven't done that before, I think this year would be a great year. I think to do something a little bit extra. Everyone on their own level, to eat something perhaps it's not 100% kosher for Pesach. Maybe stay away from it this year. Even one thing, every mitzvah, every little thing that a person does is extremely,
and also just to point out,
valuable.
Of course, the mitzvahs that we not only abstain from but do things.
Correct.
And one very important thing is to have a big piece of shmura matzah, specifically shmura matzah, on the first 2 nights of Pesach. So if anyone needs shmura matzah, please let us know, because it's an easy mitzvah really. I mean, a little hard to eat sometimes, but not very tasty. But if you can have a big piece of hand shmura matzah on both nights of Pesach, that's an amazing mitzvah. The Zohar says it brings all sorts of blessings, and it's the most amazing thing. So please reach out.
So going back to the craziness of Pesach and all of it. So did you find when we were growing up, I want to hear more from your perspective. Like, did you impose all of these things on your children? And I guess it's more of a general question. It's not actually only about Pesach. It's all our values, all of your customs, all of your practices and stringencies and restrictions. Did you impose that on your children? Did you demand that from them? And if yes, how did you make sure that they don't resent it?
So you're going to a very, very important and fundamental concept, I think, in parenting, which needs to be understood. Because I always say to people that I unashamedly brainwashed my children. Now, why would I do that? And what does that mean? So I think the following, right? On one hand, we talk about education, and this is true for teachers, for parents, for everyone. It always gets quoted what King Solomon said, "Chanoch l'na'ar al pi darko," which means educate a child according to his way. In other words, every child is different. No one's a clone, and everyone needs special handling and needs to be educated on their path, right? However, having said that, there's a concept we call values, right? And everyone has values. For example, even basic things like safety, right? No parent is going to tell me that, they don't insist that their child looks right and left before they cross the road. Because
let them do it their way.
We'll let them develop, we'll let them discover it on their own. By the time they discover it, they'll have been in hospital 17 times, right? Because it doesn't work like that. There's certain things, just, most parents educate their children, they've got to brush their teeth, and they've got to have certain manners and etiquette and so on and so forth. And I believe, spiritually speaking, it's exactly the same thing. Values are something that everyone has to have. We all have a set of values. With the Jewish people, our values are rooted in Torah or in tradition and so on and so forth. But the definition of a value is conviction, right? And it's the duty of parents to transmit values to children. That's an axiom, I think. It's a fundamental concept, right? In other words, what you believe in is what you're supposed to pass on to the next generation. That's the idea of Chol Dor Vador and so on and so forth, right? In fact, that is what Pesach is all about. The whole essence of Pesach,
teach your children,
is teaching your children. That's the Haggadah, to teach your children. Now, how you implement that value and how you teach that value matters a lot. So, if values, and some values of Torah are restrictive sometimes, and they can be imposing. It depends how you package them. So first of all, values are axiomatic, but there's various ways to implement certain values, right? And you have to be careful. So you have to know different children will implement values differently.
Right.
And that's where you have to know the differences between your children. Second of all, values, there's modern research, by the way, I've forgotten who it's from, but there's modern research of how to transmit values. Because every parent transmits values at the end of the day. And the way you transmit values, they say, is 3 things. First of all, talking about them. You've got to talk about the values and why they're important, explain them a lot. Passion. Children have to see you're excited about the values. And thirdly, setting an example, right? So that's number 1. You've got to live those values too. You can't transmit values you don't believe it, right?
Yeah.
Or you don't live by. So setting an example. Those are basics. But in addition to that, it's got to come with love and it's got to come with fun. I don't know how I did this perfectly, but I like to think that, it was, there were tense times. We were pretty strict on Pesach, but I think, and that's true with all values, I think, that people, our children and now our grandchildren look very forward to the Seder. There was always this thing, how long is the Seder going to go? And they were very proud of the fact that they stayed
up till 3 o'clock.
They could stay up long.
That's right.
In fact, one of our children, I think it was your brother, Moshe, he said he's staying up the whole Seder. He was very young, and we just told him on Pesach night, you stay up as long as you want.
Right.
And then he fell asleep in the middle of the meal.
Yeah.
And he woke up much later the next morning, and he was so angry with us. He didn't eat the afikoman.
Right.
Which I was very happy about, but I couldn't calm him down. It was very nice that he was so happy about it. But I mean, I really couldn't wake the kid up. He was really in deep sleep. In fact, I tried, but actually, he really fell into a very deep sleep. Anyway, so that was a funny moment. I remember that. But it's got to be with love. You've got to talk about it. You've got to be passionate about it. And also, I think parents, and this is, I think, for all Pesachs, because in the shiurim and people I come across, as soon as I mention the word Pesach, it sounds like an anxiety-inducing word. It's like a forbidden word, Someone told me when he hears about Purim, it means no, Pesach is coming. Oh yeah, right. So there's that concept of, I know it is difficult, and by the way, things that are valuable and things that are precious don't come for free. They come with effort.
Everything meaningful in life.
Everything meaningful.
Yeah.
But I think what children need to see is that you're happy to do it, not that you kvetch and you complain and it's Pesach and what we can do and there's so much cleaning and so on and so forth. They've got to see that you're excited. You're excited to work hard. Yeah. And you're proud to work hard, and we have a special Pesach, and whatever the case is. So, I think getting back to your central question is, values are things that are sometimes, yes, need to be imposed. Now, imposed is probably the wrong word, but it's okay. It's okay. We don't say, I believe very strongly in this value. It's a conviction of mine, but I'm going to let my child figure it out now. You don't do that. You wouldn't do that with crossing the street, and you wouldn't do that with hygiene values, and you wouldn't do that with other things. You have to. There's certain things, it's your responsibility to impart values. Now, you need to do it in the right context, you need to do it. And even with Pesach, for example, you have to see, like if a child is really struggling with something, you have to know when to
bend a little bit.
Right, when to bend a little bit if it's not crucial. Also, I don't know why, but there's also things that people go to such lengths on Pesach that I don't know where it came in. Like, for example, I know some people who vacuum out their linen closet. Now, I'm not quite sure. I don't know when the last time anyone
It's called spring cleaning.
Yeah, but Pesach is not spring cleaning. Right. I mean, you do your kitchen.
Especially in Sydney when it's not spring.
Exactly. I mean, it's a good time to do it before Rosh Hashanah or something. But there's no food in the linen closet, I hope. I mean, unless you got little children to put food everywhere.
Right.
It's an open piece of the Talmud. There are places that you don't take chametz to, you don't have to clean.
Right.
And you don't have to check. Right. So you don't have to you don't have to do things that are completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think there needs to be a culture. I think it goes back to something also. This, in our generation, we live in a generation where people don't like to be uncomfortable. That's just the general rule with anything. And I think actually part of education of children is to teach them that it's okay to be uncomfortable.
It's actually an opportunity.
Yeah.
So
now you tell me from your point of view. Let's see how
traumatized you are. I always loved Pesach. I actually never had a problem with it. I mean, I must say, even till today, it's definitely psychological because even with all of our restrictions, there's plenty to eat. It's not like we're hungry, you know what I'm saying? But you still feel this because you know that you can't eat certain things, you feel this certain type of hunger, but it's obviously, it's ridiculous, and you know that you're fine, and I still love Pesach. And Seder was always a highlight of our year.
Correct. As I was saying before, I think it's actually an important thing in our generation. I heard a crazy thing. I'm sure you've heard it too. Like overseas, in very, very big communities where there's a lot of pizza stores.
Right.
There's this mad rush after Pesach to go and buy a pizza, the first pizza.
Right.
And in fact, I heard such a crazy thing that there are certain stores. I mean, they make it kosher because what they do is, I'll show you in a second, but they auction off the first pizza, and then the proceeds go for tzedakah. Okay, it's very nice, but
it's a terrible message.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
Well, you can't live a week without pizza.
Yeah.
And I started to see in the stores, I mean, we don't eat processed stuff, but people now make kosher Pesach pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's only a week.
Right.
It's only 8 days.
And it's an opportunity to practice self-control.
Yeah,
That's good.
And like you say, there was always plenty to eat.
Yeah. So together with this idea of being uncomfortable and practicing self-control, as you mentioned, part of it, I think a very important part of it, is to try and make it as fun as possible.
Correct.
So maybe let's try to relate this to Pesach specifically, and many people listening, I'm sure, will be running a Pesach Seder, everyone on their own level, on their own journey. And most Seders have children, whether it's your children, your grandchildren, your nephews, your nieces. Maybe you can give some tips of how to make the Seder, first of all, more Jewish, more meaningful, and also more fun.
So that's a very good question. So there's a couple of points here. First of all, preparation. Meaning, don't only clean for Pesach, but there's a lot of reading, a lot of good reading there in English, accessible, personal growth stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
We have stuff on our YouTube page, which we'll put the link into it.
We should. You'll put the link in, and we'll
old stuff that you look a lot younger in.
Yeah, no. That's quite funny actually.
That's right.
It is me. Some of the stuff. There's short stuff. There's explanations on the Seder plate.
Yeah.
So adults, prepare. Get some meaning. Like, don't just come there and sort of do what you do every year. But plan the Seder. Now, I would say two things. If you have children at the Seder, make them prominent. Make sure they're not just sitting way at the end of the table. They're sitting in a place where it's near the action. Prepare quizzes. Nowadays also there's props you can buy. Like the 10 plagues,
finger puppets, and
all these things. Go to a Judaica store, and there's lots of stuff to buy. But make them involved. Make a quiz. Make it. But don't only do that. Don't make it a kids thing, because you also don't want kids to grow up knowing that Seder is for kids and it's not for adults. So as soon as they become adults, they've graduated.
Yeah.
Do the same thing with your adults around the table. Focus first on the kids. Ask a lot of questions. Get them involved. Sing some songs. And then do the same thing with adults. And even though the kids might not understand, I'm very strong about this. I think kids also have to witness
an adult Seder.
Yeah. Like, I know when you sat at the Seder when you were children, we didn't focus all the time on the children. We did some of the time very, very prominently. But also we shared insights among the adults that were sitting at the table. And
I probably didn't understand 100%, but you
Maybe
absorbed it.
you didn't understand. Maybe for a while you went to lie on the couch and you were just by osmosis sort of absorbing it. But you witnessed an adult Seder. So those two things are really, really important. But it only comes preparation. So if you're running the Seder, or if you're going to be involved in the Seder, do some reading. Come up with some explanations, some with quizzes, some insights, discussion points. What does it mean to become free today? What does it mean? How can we take the next step? How can we go out of our comfort zone? What is that? What's the symbolism behind the 10 plagues? What's the symbolism behind Dayenu? You can start gratitude, and everything comes from Hashem. There's lots and lots and lots of stuff that we can talk about at the Seder table. So there's plenty of reading there. Click on the link in the notes. You'll see some stuff there, or just anywhere
plenty
on the
online.
Yeah.
Once we're talking about Pesach, maybe we'll just end off, because I think we're, obviously this is, as this past week was actually 6 months since Simchas Torah, since October 7th. And we hope, the hope would be that there'll be a miracle before Pesach, and all the hostages will be freed, and there'll be, the victory that we need. But if God forbid it isn't, maybe you can perhaps give some context of what is unique about this year's Seder. Seder is about celebrating freedoms. It's about celebrating joyous things.
Sure.
Can we really celebrate freedom this year? Is that something we can actually do?
Well, it depends what we mean by freedom. I think one of the themes of the Seder is remembering, number one, the times when we weren't so free, and also remembering those that aren't free.
Right.
But it's not about just remembering, right? I don't think remembering itself is good enough. Now, there's no question this Seder, I hope before Pesach that everyone's out and there'll be a victory and so on. But like as you say, if God forbid isn't, there's no question that this Seder we have to have the soldiers, the captives, the injured, and so on our minds. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But we need to do it by increasing the intensity and the energy of the Seder. The Kabbalistic works tell us that the Seder night is very holy time, and it's a very auspicious time to draw down blessing. Right? I would say let's have everyone in our minds, but not just about putting something on the table, or not just putting a notice. You can do that too, but it's about maybe increasing like another element to the Seder of discussion, making sure that we all have the Shmura Matzah. And we eat the
perhaps something
matzah.
You haven't done in the past year,
right.
to do it this year.
Take something you haven't done.
Yeah.
Maybe if you didn't make it through all the 4 cups of wine, which by the way could be grape juice too, kosher grape juice.
Yeah.
Make sure.
Also be good wine.
It can be good wine too, exactly. Make sure you do the mitzvah. Make sure, and if you're not sure how to do it, reach out. And there's many people who will explain to you what to do, the basics of what to do. Experience freedom, experience the Seder more, experience the holiness of the Seder, with having in mind that we want to do this for those that can't.
Right.
And we want to do this for those that need extra blessing, and for those that need extra spiritual energy. And make it, coming out of Egypt, the Pesach Seder is about being born as a nation. The prophets tell us that the exodus from Egypt is really the birth of the Jewish nation. It's all about our Jewish identity. We are essentially intrinsically Jewish. Those that are captured are Jewish. Those that are in soldiers are Jewish. We have to connect with all other Jews. We're all responsible for each other. So connect more with the Seder, not just symbolically, but spiritually, experientially. Connect with the Seder, having our brothers and sisters who maybe can't connect as we could in mind. Do it for ourselves and do it for them.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. enjoy your preparation for Pesach. Wish you all lots of luck. And
enjoy Pesach.
That's right.
Just enjoy it. Have fun.
Absolutely.
All the best. Have a good day.